All right, real quick update on Saturday, March 7th. And I did go into town today. I got my extra gallon of tree line green. Got the electrical box for the last light inside the office. Got some more fertilizer for the vines. I'm just trying to find a spot where the light's not killing me here. Okay, better. Made the rounds, got gas, got an oil change in my Pathfinder, went to Walmart, did some shopping, and then I'm coming back here, and it's late afternoon, but I actually did get something done today. So let me flip this around. This is a real pain, but I know it's got to get done. So what I did was I dug out all around the porch here so that I could start painting below the sand line. So it's all dug out all the way around here, all the way, I'll back it out a little bit here, underneath the steps, all the way around to here, so that I could get really low on that aluminum that covers the bottom of the porch. And I used the last bit of tree line green that I had, and it got me to here, and I'm absolutely out of it. But I have a whole new gallon now, so I'm gonna let this dry tonight and then hit it again tomorrow morning. And hopefully, by the afternoon, if I do maybe 2 coats around on this, then I can push the sand back up against it, and we'll have a seamless transition between the tree line green and the sand there at the bottom of the porch. So that's what I got done today. Wasn't spectacular, but it's something. All right, talk to you tomorrow. All right, Sunday, March 8th. Woo. It was a bit of a physical day. A lot of painting, but this morning it was raining, and I really couldn't paint in the rain, even though I'm covered by this pole barn here. It just made the sand wet, and it's just a mess trying to paint in the rain. And it gets on your boots, and then you can't step up onto things, and you're always fighting the sand getting into where you're painting. So I did some cleanup work, and I carried down all of the extra OSB and plywood that I didn't use in the little office conversion. So I carried all that down by hand, and I'm sure that's going to leave a mark. Tomorrow I'm going to feel it for sure. Yeah, there it is. All the OSB and plywood is now gone. It's down in the Quonset hut and stored on the long carts, neatly organized, so when I do need it, I've got it. But then it did start to clear up, so let me back this off here, and I did get some painting done. So I got another coat along the bottom here all the way around. It's looking pretty good. I think I want to do just one more quick coat on that before I push the sand back up. I did a little touch up on the walls here. I painted the posts that had the caulk on them to paint over that white caulk, and then I started the steps here down to here, and then I started painting the deck. That's just first coat, so that's going to get 2 more coats, and then I'm going to have to come back and go in the cracks with a brush. And there's going to be a lot of brush work here. Like after I get this done, I'll have to brush in these spaces here. There's just no way to do it with a roller. So yeah, unfortunately, brush work is coming, but I'm making progress. I think if I can get some dry weather, maybe tomorrow or the next day, I will have this finished up. I do need to do underneath the eave here one more time, and then I've got to cut in along the ridge line there where it meets the back wall of the mobile home. But yeah, I think maybe 2 days should do it, and then it's all just internal or inside work. But I think I'm going to put that on hold for now. I want to get back to the Quonset hut, finish up those carriage door trim and then paint the floor, at least a third or a half the floor in there, so that I can start moving some stuff in. And I do want to start dabbling with the watering system for the vineyard. So lots to do. Anyway, that's end of day Sunday, and we're back at it again Monday. All right, it is Monday, March 9th, and was nothing but a painting day. Lovely. Oh, I did put the final round electrical box in the ceiling in the office, so there is that. But that only took about a minute and a half to nail it into place and pull the wire through. So rough electrical is done 100%, and the painting I got done today, let's switch around and take a look at that. Got some bugs hanging around here. Let me back this off. I did get the final coat of paint along the whole bottom aluminum panels here, so that's looking pretty good. That was the first thing I did this morning, so tomorrow around noon, I guess, I'll push all this sand back in there, and that'll be the end of that. I did do another coat around here because I was still seeing some lines on the aluminum that I was using to line up the screws, so I just wanted to cover that one more time. I did a little bit more caulking in places here where the screws are, let that dry, and then touched it up with Irish paddock. And I got the steps done. I got the staircase steps and the runners there, whatever you call them. They're pretty much done with 2 coats. They look pretty good. I don't think I'm going to need anything more on them. And then I did get a second coat of paint on these horizontal boards on the porch. So everything you see in the tree line green is double coated. That section there I still got to do because that was left so that I could get up and in there. But I can't even go in there now because these are still drying a little bit. They're dry to the touch, but I'm going to give them a full 24 hours to dry before I step on them. So I'm kind of stuck, can't really do any more painting. And the only thing I really need to complete, other than this little bit on the porch and maybe a third coat on all these, is up here. I'm going to cut in along the ridge line there with the Irish paddock. And once that's dry, I'll tape it up, or I'll just cut back in with the tree line green, because that covers the Irish paddock easily with basically 1 coat. So it's good to put the first coat up into there, and maybe it'll get a little bit onto the rafters there with the Irish paddock, but then the tree line green will come back across and just cover up anything that was mistakenly painted onto the rafters. And I do need to put 1 more coat underneath here, but it's just the metal section. This end rafter here along the gable end, that's already been done with 2 coats. And so just got to do 1 more coat and I am done with that. And that will wrap it up. I think probably I can get all that done tomorrow. So painting on this back porch area for the office will be done tomorrow. Yeah, so then I'll just move on to something else. I was talking about putting in the sockets and switches and stuff like that, but really I probably don't want to do that because you really want to just leave the rough electrical before you do drywall. That way you don't have to like deal with the outlets and switches and stuff hanging you up when you're trying to cut and fit the drywall around them. So I'm gonna let that go. Maybe I'll put in 1 socket just so I got some electricity in there. I don't know. I'm at a quandary of what I should do there, but yeah, I got a lot more to do in other projects. I can then finally, after I'm done up here, I can move the ladder back down and I can finish the carriage door trim, and I can start to work on the watering system for the vineyard, because I have all the pieces for that. So plenty to do, and I'm really just happy with the progress here. It looks pretty good. I mean, you know, for an old, beat up old porch here, you know, it's got a fresh coat of paint. It looks pretty good. So yeah, I'm happy with it. All right, well, that's it for Monday. Continuing on Tuesday. Alrighty, it is Tuesday, March 10th, getting close to the end of the day. Just wanted to do a real quick update today. Not a lot going on, but did get a few things done. I got all the sand put back into where I had shoveled out to be able to paint the aluminum panels below ground level. So that is all been filled back in 100%. Looks pretty good, I think. If you stand back, just take an overall view. Yeah, looks much better than it did. I did get one more coat underneath this eave here on from here over, so I'm good to go there. The only thing left to do with the ladder up here is to cut in that top portion along the ridge line so I can cover that white caulk, and maybe a little bit around each of these rafters that are coming out on the eave. And of course got to do the same thing on the other side as well. I did also paint the threshold with the black paint, so I'm waiting for that to dry, and hopefully it'll dry before tonight so I can close this door. I don't get any birds or any insects or whatever coming in. So, but it looks good. I didn't paint this top section here where the door sweep hits it because I just didn't feel like I had enough time for it to dry. But maybe I'll get up early in the morning, open the door, and then paint it, and then I'll have all day for it to dry, because I think we're going to get some dry weather over the next couple of days. And then I also I switched gears and I went down to the Quonset hut and I power washed the southern 1/3 of the floor in there. I'll take you down and show you that. But that is in preparation for doing like the epoxy coating on the floor in there. So yeah, I mean, as soon as it dries, I'll be ready to paint. So let me walk down there and I'll show you that. All right, well, there it is. Everything's been completely power washed on this whole section, like 1/3 of the whole Quonset hut. I don't even want to walk on it. It's still a little wet, so I've got the fans running, but hopefully it'll be dry by tomorrow. And if it is, I will probably start painting that section, like from here over, of the floor tomorrow. So yeah, it's looking good. I'm glad I used the power washer. Boy, you know, you sweep and you sweep and you sweep and you think it's clean, but then when you use the power washer, you can just see all the dirt that the power washer is pulling up off the floor. And I just kind of swept it out the front door here. And it seems to work pretty well. So that's it for Tuesday, March 10th, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. All right, it is Wednesday, March 11th. Not a whole lot going on today, but I did get some work done on the vineyard here. I rolled out the polyethylene tubing that's going to be part of the irrigation system, and I hooked it up to the hose here, one of the Ys, and it's bug flying by, and it's hooked up to this wire that I put along the posts. So I used these wire vices here and then strung the wire all the way along and then just held it on there with these little plastic curly Q things. I think I'm going to need some more of those because it's drooping a little bit. When it filled up with water, it kind of got a little heavy. So I'll put one in the middle. But they work really well. I mean, they go on very quickly. You can move them around and they seem to hold pretty well. So this whole side is done. The only thing I have to do next is put in the emitters, but I'm going to wait until I get the actual vines planted before I do that. That way I can space them fairly precisely to each side of the vine where it's planted. So I've got the wire on this side as well, but I don't have any more of those little plastic curlicues to hook up the polyethylene hose to the wire. I ordered some more. It'll probably take 3 or 4 days for them to come, but they go on very quickly. It's a piece of cake, and that should go up quite easily. And the only other thing I got done today was I did a very sloppy job painting up in the ridge line against the back wall of the office. I used the Irish paddock to just cover that caulk along the ridge line. But that's okay, because now when that dries, I'll tape it up and I'll come back over with the tree line green, which is much darker, and then I'll just cut that in over any sloppy, paint that got onto the upper side of the eave there, and then that will be done. So yeah, just little painting jobs left to do, and that's really all that went on today. All right, maybe something a little bit more exciting tomorrow. Take care. Thursday, March 12th. Let's do a quick update on the office conversion. So let me flip this around. All right, yesterday I did mention that I did a very sloppy job in painting up underneath the eave there with this light green, which is the Irish paddock, and it was sloppy for a reason. All I really needed to do was to cover the caulk that was along this ridge line here against the building, because I used white caulk. So I slopped all the Irish paddock up against there, and of course a bunch got onto the darker green, which is the tree line green. But that didn't really matter, because I knew what I was going to do was, you can see it's been taped up. I taped up all along that ridge and around those rafters, and then I came back along and just painted with the darker tree line green over any spills or incursions of the Irish paddock into the darker green. And with one coat, basically the darker green covers any of the lighter green, the Irish paddock. So I am all done. I've got everything painted second coat underneath this eave on both sides and around all the rafters and up along the ridge line. All I need to do is remove the paint, and that's going to complete it. The only thing left to do really is a few little touch-up jobs I noticed as I was walking around. And maybe, and this is really not that important, but I might take a brush and just go in between these boards, because there's some spots where you can see, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it doesn't have that green in between them. And I am definitely not going to pull these boards up to make sure they have, a full coat of the tree line green on them. It's just not worth it. But I think it looks pretty good. I'm very happy with the way it came out. And that's going to wrap it up, I think, for all the outside work on this. Then I can take this ladder back down and I can finally finish the trim on the carriage doors, which really shouldn't take too long. The other thing I did today was I did some other painting. I'm just starting to paint up these 4x4s here. I'm going to be using them in the garden and for some supporting posts on those end posts of the vineyard. So I'm just doing 2 coats of paint on all the surfaces. They're halfway done. I've got 2 sides done with 2 coats. So I'll flip them over tomorrow morning and I'll finish them up with 2 coats of the tree line green. And then finally out here in the vineyard, I just did a little bit of fidgeting around with the pipe, the water pipes, so that they kind of fit a little bit better with the Y valve that I got at the end of the hose here. So yeah, I was just kind of futzing around with that. I cut them off because they were a little too long, and I got them to just fit perfectly here. So there's the Y valve, and then it goes to right and to left, and it'll go down all the way to the end there. The only thing left I have to do, like I mentioned, hang this water pipe on the wire with those little curlicues, and add some more curlicues on that side. And then, you know, I think it's as soon as the vines arrive, I can put them in the ground. I did buy a little bit of potting soil that I'll mix in each of these holes. Not that it's really necessary, but I just thought, you know, it's probably a little bit better to have some sort of potting soil in there mixed with the sand, because this is really mostly just sand here. And then I also started to dig, I guess you would call it a furrow, I don't know. That's where I'm going to start planting the sunflowers all along here. So I'm hoping to get 2 rows, 1 and then 2 of the giant sunflowers. And then over there somewhere I'll just plant some pumpkins and watermelon. I think they just grow all over the ground. There's really not much structure to them, so I'll just maybe map out a grid pattern and then just put them in the ground, see what happens. So hopefully they'll grow. Of course I'll fertilize them just like I'm going to do with the grapes, but I got to get another hose to come over from here. Actually, what I'm probably going to do, I thought about this, I have another Y valve that I'll put on here, and then I'll get another smaller hose to go up to there, and then I have some soaker hoses that I'll use to water the sunflowers. So it'll go to here. It's only about 50 feet, I'd say, at the most. So I'll get a smaller hose that goes up there, and then I'll attach the soaker hoses to it. All right, well, that's it for Thursday, and we'll be wrapping up the week tomorrow with some more stuff. Talk to you later. It is Friday the 13th. Ooh. Late in the day, so time to wrap up this week. Let's start here at the office converter. Flip this around. Got the other 2 sides of these beams painted with 2 coats. So these 4 beams are ready to go into the garden when I get to it. And of course, there's always more to do. Now that these 3 are done, there's 3 more. It never ends, at least with the painting. All right, let's continue on here. Yesterday, I had taped along the ridge line of the office conversion here, and I was wondering, should I take the tape off before the paint dries, or let it completely dry and then pull the tape off? Because I really don't know. Well, I let it dry, and pulling the tape off didn't really go all that well. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but there was places where the paint, it's almost like stretchy, and it was like sticking to the tape and sort of pulling off the metal that it was painted onto. So I was able to get up there. I only did this side so far. Just cut in with a brush, kind of fix it up, and you know, I think I did okay. So now that I'm done everything on this side, I can get rid of that ladder and I can take it down, and I can finally finish those carriage door trim pieces. And just noticing a few things up here, I decided to put some wood filler in some of the holes that were in this old lumber that was used. So I'll give this a sand one more time, and then maybe put one more coat in there just to fill it up, and then give it a quick paint. Whenever I get to it, it's not all that important. I even did a couple things down here on the boards. I think some bees were drilling holes in there. I know I got a couple of holes up here where the carpenter bees are digging their little holes. Like there's one, I think somewhere in there, and one down here. I have some interesting little devices I ordered. They're real cheap. They're like, I don't know, $6 that you can, they come in a tube, and then it's like a metal mesh that you just put in the hole, and it seals it up, and then basically it kills the bee because it can't get in or out. And then I'll put some wood filler over the remainder of the hole and then just paint it up. So we'll see how that goes. Also, I bought some insecticide. I think it's called pyrethrin or something like that. I have to check the name on it. And you mix it up with water and just spray it on some of bare wood surfaces. And, you know, I checked a couple of people on YouTube and they've used it and they said they've had pretty good luck with it. So I bought that off of Amazon. It's still coming. So, you know, when it comes, I'll mix it up. I have a little sprayer that I've used before, and I can just put it like maybe on the porch here and so on some of these posts, and even some of these beams up here I've seen them on, and hopefully that'll at least keep the population down a bit. So that's it for the office conversion. I did a little cleanup and moved stuff back down to the Quonset hut. So let's go down there. There's one other thing that I kind of got done today that's been on my list for a while, and that is to install the gooseneck light over top of the man door heading into the Quonset hut. So what I did was I created a little like crescent moon thing that I mounted over the door. And the reason I did that was I wanted to distract from the fact that the gooseneck light is not mounted directly in the center of the door. So the reason it's not mounted in the center of the door is because there's a 2x6 right in the center of the door here. So I could have forced it. I could have just drilled a hole at an angle to get the wires to go through there, but I thought I'd take more of a artistic bend to it and try this. So I think it looks pretty good. So that, like I said, the gooseneck light is not actually in the center. It's a little to the left here because there's a 2x6 right there. So inside I mounted the box just to the right of the door. And I also have a little star that I'm going to be putting up here. So there's a backer board behind there that I can screw it to. But I think it looks pretty good. Let's see, that's as far back as I can go, right? Yeah, let's just step back a little bit more. Yeah, not bad, not bad. I don't really notice it not being above the exact center. And go in here, take a look from the inside, turn the lights on, and you can see there's the 2x6 and there's the 2x6 backer board for the actual crescent moon and the plate that holds the gooseneck light. And obviously this is the 2x6 right dead center in the door, and that is for mounting the star above the moon there. So yeah, that's what I got done today. That should wrap it up for this week, and we'll be doing some other interesting stuff next week. Talk to you later.